going, bro?
I feel like this is actually a real podcast now.
I know, it's kind of fun now, man.
Now that you've got like the, what do you call this device in the middle?
It's like a mixer.
Yeah, now that we have an actual mixer. Mike's or Mix-a-Lot is on the mixer today, but we had this like, we're on video as well. But hey, first off, welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 401. It is August 21st? August 21st. I would say we're a day late, but we're not. We're always on time. We come to you twice a week, but it is a Friday. We traditionally come to you twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. Yesterday, I was a little bit burnt, so it took a little bit of extra time to kind of re-energize myself with the big weekend we have here at the Hub with athletes coming in for an athlete weekend. But we appreciate you joining us today, and Mike has got the setup we have in our new Hub in the office is growing by the day. It seems like we started out with like one camera. Now we've got 3, and then I came in today, and now we've got 2 lights. And so I feel 4 lights.
Yeah, so I feel one behind you.
Yeah, it's starting to creep me out a little bit. I'm not the most comfortable person on camera anyway, but
wait till the surprise light comes.
I don't want. I feel like I'm on like some Barbara Walters special, but hopefully I never make it on one of those. But yeah, we appreciate you tuning in. Mike is killing it. We did like the actual music that we got to hear instead of just putting it in. What do you just edit that in usually on our previous
I just put
400
it in post.
podcasts?
Hopefully I didn't screw that up because I would just really screw everything up if that doesn't work. But
well, if it doesn't work, then you got to
edit in.
Yeah, you got a nice smooth intro with no music if it didn't. But yeah, we appreciate you tuning in. We cover all things triathlon and we cover all things life. We'll occasionally go through race recaps, race previews. We'll go into swim, bike, and run details, training philosophy, outlines, general things that Mike and I have both learned as coaches and athletes over the past 10 or 15 years, and do our best to just share our experiences, both the good, the bad, the ugly, and hopefully present them in a consumable and easily digestible way so that you can hopefully prevent yourself from doing some of the same, running into the same mistakes that we have. And if you can just take something that we have today and apply it to your life in a happy and healthy way and make it your own, then Podcast 401 will be a stellar 6 out of 10.
Oh, that's right, 401. Are you going to share some of your experiences about that new haircut you got going?
You don't like my new haircut?
No, I just noticed it.
Listen,
I'm just saying it's.
Mike rarely ever gives me compliments, especially about my looks, so that'd be kind of weird. But 3 or 4 months ago, I started going to a new barber. We moved to Chattanooga, and he like pulled me aside. I don't know where we were. I think we were actually at the Trace, maybe for one of our camps.
I think it was in Nashville.
It was in Nashville, and he pulled me aside and he looked at me straight in the eyes, and I was like, "Oh man, this is about to be a really big conversation." And he put his hand on my shoulder and he looked at me and he said, "Robbie, that's a great haircut."
I didn't say Robbie.
No, you didn't. He didn't put your hand on my shoulder either. But for the people listening, it was probably a good image. But no, he was like, "That's a good haircut." And so I went back yesterday and saw Frankie, and I said, "Give me my fall cut." And she said, "Hey, I'll take care of it."
Frankie, huh?
Yeah.
And then we had that discussion. Remember about, hey, I should have hooked up with wait. Where are you on that?
I go to Frankie and Johnny's, which is on Tremont, which is actually on the Ironman Chattanooga run course.
Right.
And you moved in, and Sam was here, and I was like, you should go. And then which is obviously an interesting. I can see this. I don't take it as
you can see my perspective.
I can see that perspective about not sharing, and so I was telling you guys just because I could care less who goes and sees my hairstylist, because obviously first I don't have my hair really styled. They just cut it and I'm in and out in 20 minutes. She does do an excellent beard trim. She's excellent. She does a very good job. But there's 5 other stylists in there, and so which actually ended up being a kind of a difficult conversation. And again, we'll get into triathlon here in a minute, but this is what we usually do for the first 10 minutes. Is Frankie and Johnny's. That's her and her business partner Johnny. And I went the first time I was going in there, I saw him. And I walked out and I was like, man, this is okay. This is a decent cut. And so I was like, you know what? I'll go back and check out Frankie next time. So I walk in there, they're the same seats side by side. And I walked back in and he was like, hey man, how'd you like your haircut last time I see you over Frankie? I was like, well, yeah, I was just kind of experimenting to see what I was going to break the news to him. I know. It's like but now I've never left. She has a great job. But you and Sam were talking about, I remember exactly where we were going past Main Street Meats, and Sam was like, where do you get your haircut? And you were like, I can't tell you. No, you're like, I don't want to share.
Yeah,
you don't want to share.
He sent me a text, and I didn't get back to him.
Dude.
I was like,
That's the most passive aggressive thing you can do.
I know, but I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like, well, I forgot after. At first I was like, I'm not going to do this. And then when the other day we walked by there and I went, hey, that's where I get my haircut. And I knew that he had gotten one before I told him that, so I felt okay telling him. I don't know. It's kind of like, we talk about Seinfeld references all the time, but it's sort of like women, I guess, like Lane got mad when the woman asked her where she got her shoes. You
don't want to share your hairstylist.
I don't know. It's like, if somebody asks me, hey, that's a cool shirt, where'd you get it? I'm like, not so much. It's going to stay cool on me and not you.
You don't want to share the love?
I just don't think you need, I knew this one guy back in the day. He was, I played softball with him, and he was a cool guy, and, the younger kids really liked him and respected him or something. And he had a New York Yankees tattoo, and it was sort of unique in some way. I can't remember exactly why. And we were out one night at the bar, and this young kid comes walking up to him. He goes, hey, man, check this out. He got the same exact tattoo as my buddy Larry did.
All right, that's a little bit different than getting a haircut from the same person.
Well, the shirt thing. I mean, it's like, look, man, I was in college once. I can't remember if I talked about this in the podcast, but I met this girl, and she was actually from Madison, and her dad was a professor at the university where I was in college. And we had met one time, and then when she was coming back into town, we decided to go out on a date. And she came back in town, and we were wearing the same sweater. That's a bad problem.
First of all, you were wearing a sweater?
It was Wisconsin in the winter.
No, this is what, the 1970s?
No, it was in the 80s or something.
Early 80s, right?
No, it was mid-80s. Dude, is that the alarm guy?
Yeah, that's all right. Just stay focused. He's doing his deal.
I know, but why is he doing that?
That's all right. And stay focused.
He's been doing that for 20 minutes.
This is, anyway, we'll get into triathlon in a second. So anyway, if you ever see Mike's haircut and you love it, please don't email in asking him where he gets it, because he's not going to share it. If you, in any way, shape, or form, like mine and want to come to Chattanooga, go see Frankie and Johnny's off of Tremont. Again, it's on the Ironman Run course. Visit her. She'll take good care of you. You'll be in and out of there in like 20 minutes, and everything will go well.
I mean, I know that.
That's all right. Just let it go. I get it. I mean, I think it's an age thing, but that's fine.
An age thing?
Yeah, people. People get a little more territorial as they get older. Like they, get off my lawn, and I don't want.
There is some of that. Yeah, I was actually talking to one of our athletes last night about how when I was a kid, like nobody told anybody who they were voting for.
Oh, my mom.
Like, hey, mom, who are you voting? That's private.
My mom has still never in her life told me who she's ever voted for.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I think for her it was, I don't want to influence your decision and who you believe or what party you start to affiliate yourself with. Really? I want you to, become who you want to become, not just vote for whoever because I'm voting for that person too. But anyway.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, my mom and dad, they were just like, that's privileged information. That's private. Yeah,
which is
my own decision. I don't need to I don't need you to affect me from the outside because of what I decided I want to do. That's really weird. It's sort of like religion was that way too. But now it's just everything.
No, religion was the opposite for us.
Haircuts, where'd you get your shirt, who you voting for? It's like there's nothing sacred anymore.
Since you're sharing is caring.
Including triathlon podcasts.
Including triathlon podcasts. There's plenty of them. We're definitely one of them. But we'll dive back in. We'll get off our politics, haircut, cult talk, and hop on in today. But I wanted to talk about the difference in commitment and motivation and how that crosses over different spectrums in our lives. We have on the, I think, Crushing Iron site that we have, crushingiron.com, we have an Ask the Coach button where people can hop in and record a question from their own phone, and we'll do that. We'll do one of those here in the next couple of podcasts. But we had someone email in, and it was a coach, and I work with I think 10 or 11 coaches that I coach as well, and then obviously we have some coaches that listen to this podcast, and I think it was an interesting question. It's something that I knew that I struggled with a ton when I first got into coaching, and sometimes even periodically have to remind myself of as a coach. And I remember talking about this with you as well when you started to get into coaching. We started the club a couple years ago, and you still kept up with plenty of athletes since then. It's very hard to separate as a coach your when you have it, because you don't always have it, even though I think coaches pretend they always have it. your commitment and motivation level about you wanting to work out and be committed and be consistent and committed to a process and getting things done day to day, versus you can't want that for an athlete, because everything is different for the athlete as well. Athletes, because I mean, you do this, you open up Training Peaks and you see an athlete who's missed more workouts again this week, and you say, hey, how's it going? I'm trying to get it together. And you want it so bad for them, but it's a hard, you have to kind of disassociate that with them and yourself and like their life and what is your life and how things, because if you look at it for me, we talked about this before we went live today, was that, I've definitely gone through periods. I've taken like over a 2-year hiatus from triathlon right now. And I wouldn't say that my commitment and motivation level in general in life has changed. I've probably actually been more committed and more motivated than I've ever been in life the last 2 years. But triathlon and training had to take kind of a back seat in order to propel, myself in other directions of where I want us to go with coaching and opening up the hub and moving and all these kind of things. So I'm probably actually never been as motivated or committed as I have been right now.
Right now.
But and I'm talking about not even triathlon training related. I'm just talking about general, like your general mindset. Because I think people they wake up and they think, or they're committed and they're motivated, but you only have enough motivation. And, I think the biggest thing is energy. You have to have energy, and you have to be rested to have motivation. And I think commitment and motivation are two different things. But this question from the coach was actually about, what about athletes who just never seem to get it together, who can't just who always have, time management issues, or just really truly can't find a way to get things done no matter what. There's always something getting in the way. And first off, like, that's more than fine. I think that's another important thing to understand, both as athletes and coaches, is that everyone has different priorities in life. Like everyone listening to this podcast right now is probably somewhat interested in triathlon to an extent. Yet, if you had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 throughout your life, where it ranked, some people would have it ranked 1, some people would have it ranked number 10, some people would have it ranked number 5 or 6. So its level of importance is different. And then also within that might change over the course of the next like 2 to 3 years. Like 2.5 years, 3 years ago, triathlon for me was like 1 and 2, but that was like participating in triathlon. And then the last, 2 or 3 years, it's been coaching triathlon has been number 1, participating, and has been like not even in the top 10. So I think it's important to understand, like, especially through the time period we've had in the last few months, and people not racing and their lives being, totally gone crazy with, not being able to work steady, and their kids being home and things, going all you just got to stay focused, man. Just dial it in. I guarantee you, no one listening right now can hear the dials in the background. So this is a good exercise in staying focused.
That's fine. But my question is, like, you got any more work? Anything quiet? I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be working with a screwdriver. He's been punching that button for fucking 20 minutes. Has he not?
It is. It's like one of those. It's like one of those phone-a-thons. But yeah, it's pretty incessant. But you got to stay focused and dialed in.
He's the same guy that came here this morning. He goes, all right, yeah, I'm here and everything. I go, all right, cool. How's it going? He goes, well, I got to go back to the shop and get everything now. And I was like,
listen, doing our alarm and security system is probably. Do you need to get up and let me take it from here? You can get up if you want to, and I'll take it from here. Go ahead. Just go. I got it. Now it's dead quiet. And now Mike's worried that he's actually probably like right outside by the door listening and being like, oh my gosh, they're talking crap about me. So Mike's going to leave the room. I'll keep talking. Just see it, dude. He might not even come back for the rest of the podcast as long as I can hit stop. No, but I think one of the more important things to understand is for athletes is that you can be motivated, you can be committed, and triathlon can be important to you, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have days off. It doesn't mean you're not going to miss things. It doesn't mean that if you miss things or have time, or you struggle with time management, that you're not necessarily committed or you don't have the energy for it. Because, like I said, everyone, like we see this all the time in our Crushing Iron group on Facebook, is that everyone has triathlon somewhere different in their lives. And if you're single and you've got a 35 hour a week job and you have like minimal responsibilities, then you can put triathlon really, really high because you have very little life stress that's going to get in the way. But if you're a person who's maybe married, has 5 or 6 kids, works 45, 50 hours a week, your kids are in summer sports, while triathlon might be important to you, you have other things in life that are pulling and tugging at you. And that ebbs and flows. And I think we've seen that, especially the last, 3, 4, 5 months with athletes, is that a lot of people are taking more time to be flexible. And I think that's important. And I think that's important to understand for every athlete right now, especially with the uncertainty that we have for the remainder of the year, is that you should be fine being flexible. You should be fine taking days off. But when it comes to really nailing things down and really starting to stay focused again on what you want to stay motivated about and why you're actually motivated, I think that those are important questions that you have to ask. I think you have to look at yourself and think, all right, what is exactly do I want to accomplish? What's most important? And then to be frank, I mean, and I'm sure there are plenty of people listening, and I have athletes like this as well, that they just straight up struggle with time management. Most oftentimes that happens when athletes aren't people who like to get up early in the morning, because they sleep in, they go to work, and the next thing you know, life basically takes charge, and they literally can't find time because everything gets in the way, and then you get off work and you're super tired. So one of the biggest things, and I think areas that we could all improve, not all of us improve on, but most of us, is understanding our pitfalls in time management. What exactly is it, that we need to focus on in terms of getting better? What is it that we need to maybe rearrange? Or do we need to just scale things back in terms of, this is something that I can really do well this week, or this is things that I can't do well this week? In Training Peaks for me, I like to have athletes tell me, as weeks in advance, are they traveling? What are their summer sports like with their kids? Are their kids going back, to online learning? Because these things are actually going to really, really shrink down their availability and time to do things to be successful. And so that's an important thing. But going back to the original question with the coach, is like, you can't look at an athlete and want it for them. That's I think one of the biggest pieces, especially this is a good conversation, probably new coaches or coaches who are just getting into the sport who are taking on more athletes or working with a very wide variety of people, is you can't want an athlete to do well. You can't want them their way to getting better. You can't want their way into being more consistent. You can't want them to do their sessions, and you can't just ask or expect them to do every single session. You have to really try to find a way, either A, to get behind why they're not doing it, maybe because they're overloaded with volume, maybe because there's too much intensity, maybe because their life is too crazy. But the biggest question you really need to ask is, is to understand what they want out of it. And that might come through like an onboarding questionnaire or understanding what their goals are. Because, I have, if you like the spectrum of athletes that I work with, I've got athletes who are literally just getting into the sport, who have never done a triathlon in their entire life. And I've got athletes who, want to go back and go to Kona again, and I've got everyone else in between. And then you got plenty, like I have probably 10, 15, 20 athletes I can name off the top of my head that would literally tell me, I don't even care if I race.
That's amazing to me.
I just want to train, or I don't even like racing. I like the structure. I like the accountability. I like having something on the calendar that I can do because it gives me a sense of control. But then you also have plenty of athletes who are in this sport to just have as much fun as possible. And I think that's the biggest difference, like what you need to find the biggest difference in is, are they in it to have fun? Because when you're coaching an athlete, it's the biggest thing I had to understand, I still have to remind myself of, is you can look at 5 different athletes and you can look at all 5 and say, this person wants this person wants this person wants this, and the other 2 want this. And they're all going to be totally different. They have different expectations of what they want to get out of it. It might just be to have fun and get healthier. Another one might be to, find a PR. The other one might be to, qualify for Kona. Another one might be to go, sub 7 hours in a setting. Everyone's going to have a different goal, and that goal is theirs. And you have to, that's one of the hardest things about coaching, is that how you see an athlete when you kind of go back to back to back and look at 5 different ones, they're all going to have different focuses. They're all going to have different things they believe in, different priorities in their life, and you have to be able to be flexible with those and remind yourself that the journey is theirs. The journey isn't yours. The journey is not the coaches. And I think coaches sometimes have a hard time separating that, is that the journey is the athletes, and you have to let them go do their own journey, participate in it. You're just simply holding their hand, pushing them along the way, sometimes dragging them along the way, but you're just a part of it, and hopefully setting them up for success along the way. And to be honest with you, as long as they're happy and as long as they're healthy, then a lot of it really doesn't matter. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of coaches to kind of distance themselves from, is a results-based focus where it has to be results. Because most coaches think that results it's all about marketing, right? But results are marketing because my athletes are doing great. If you're not doing great, then I'm not going to get more publicity. I'm not going to get more marketing. People are going to be talking about me. That's one of one of the very first emails I got when we started this podcast was a newer coach came on and he said, I have this athlete that wants me to work with them, but they're actually really, 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 really slow. And I don't know if I want to take them on because that might make me look like a bad coach. But the greatest referral you can ever get and the greatest promotion or marketing you can ever get is to have your athletes just be happy and be healthy. And other than that, as long as your athletes are happy and healthy, then you really shouldn't care about anything else.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Well, first of all, I love having newer and slower, people that want to get better. And that's right up my alley. I like coaching, people who are athletic in the past, maybe they want to get into triathlon. I also like beginners, and I like people who are just trying to get better, whatever. But I agree with you. Like, my first thought was like, I kind of feel guilty more, and I'm working on that part, but if somebody's not doing their workouts, but it's not on me. I just, like, my point was like, I don't really, if they're not doing workouts, I don't care. Like, I'm not mad or like, why aren't you doing that? As much as I kind of hope that things are going okay, so we were just talking about before the podcast is like, to me, it's pretty simple. You do stuff that you like to do. I mean, the odds are if you like it or you figure out a way to like it, you're going to do it. That's what we were saying about this podcast. We've done 401 podcasts, 2 a week for 4 years-ish. And it's because we like them. I think a lot of times it's sort of like, oh, Jesus, got to grind it up. But ultimately, we enjoy talking things out. And even if we don't know what we're going to talk about, and that's really like why we call it therapy, I think, for each other in a lot of ways, and we're just sitting here talking and listening and responding. And that's what helps us get through to the next podcast or gets us out the door to work out or gets us kind of in motivational mode. And for people who, like you said about all those athletes that don't like racing or don't care if they have a race on the calendar, they prefer it maybe.
You're the opposite.
I'm jealous maybe on some level. I kind of get it. It's like those people that should be like Swiss watchmakers or something, I don't have that kind of patience and it sounds to me like they're
really,
crafting
we haven't
some
been
sort
able
of
to tell
perfection.
the last 15 minutes.
Oh man. I'll be out here with a screwdriver in the next 20 minutes. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. My patience is a little thin today.
But not everyone needs the race. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think a lot, but with our podcast, we were talking about this before we went live, was that I use the example of, in terms of consistency, because, everyone has things in their life that I think that they've and I think this is where we reach way too far sometimes in terms of trying to compare ourselves to other people, which is, I think, a huge downfall that we have in society, is just of comparison in general. Like, there have been times in my life where, like, I talked about, I think on podcast 400 or maybe 399, about when for 3 years, I woke up every day and did this like meditation path and prayer and thing. And, that period of time in my life was incredibly difficult. I was overcoming a lot of obstacles and then ultimately got past them. And so if you use the comparison argument and you say, well, if you were able to do all those things every day and you were able to overcome all those obstacles and you're able to be here today, then why exactly is it you can't get up and work out every single day? That is it couldn't be any farther from an apples to apples comparison.
But why could you get up and do that walk thing, but you couldn't get up every day and walk? I know we're talking about different things, but those are a little bit similar, because my first thought was, wow, how did you find the energy to do that every day? I mean, even though you probably didn't have it every day to get up and, especially the idea of like, oh man, this is the last thing I want to do right now. That's why I'm so big on that. Just the mental portion of this. How did you flip that? Or how did you get, I mean, I kind of know because we go back and it's probably not that easy of a solution or at least something to explain, but it's an energy thing to me, man.
No, you're right in that it gave me a sense of control over hope that I was still not 100% certain was going to be factual.
So control?
control over, control in that this was a small part of my day that if I feel like I did this, even if it's, I talked about in the other podcast, fake it till you make it or do this. And I think this is, there are so many similarities in recovery and consistency and training that it's kind of crazy, but it was a small part of it. It was the very first thing I could do for the day, that if I started out before anything else happened, that if I did that and I did it and I said it, I would feel better. And I would feel like I had somewhat of control over it. And it's almost like it gave me energy. It gave me like a sense of, even if it was, even though I was going through a period of time where I was worried about things that were going to happen years and years away, right? It was unknown uncertainties every single day in my life that I had no idea what was going to happen. Yet I had to wake up every day and be hopeful that no matter what, things are going to work out. And no matter what, things are going to be better, as long as today I did all these very, very small things. Because the truth of the conversation I had to have with myself, and this is, I think, a very similar conversation that athletes need to have right now with their training, is that for me, I said, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? I wake up every day and do these. I try to be a better person. I do all these things. I try to live the best life I possibly can be. And let's say in 3 or 4 years, things don't work out. Well, is my life going to be worse or better? Well, it might, in a very small period of time, not be the greatest, but in the long term, my life will be incrementally better, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen by getting up and doing these things? And I think that's another example people can take right now in their training is like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen when you get up and go train?
Is that it? Or is it I don't think that there's any doubt that you thought that was a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, it was, what's the worst that can happen? Is it more of, like, to me, it sounds like you were building, blocks of faith around that, or some kind of belief system, more than what's the worst that can happen. Like it's like, if I get up, I'm like, why do I got to work out today? I mean, there's no race, and I haven't really noticed anything in the last couple of weeks. What's the difference? It's a faith that those systems are working below the surface, that you just have to be like, I'm not getting any better, and I'm not getting any better. I'm not getting better. And then one week it's like, boom, all of a sudden you are better. How do we crystallize that thought process in our head?
I think a lot of it goes, excuse me. I think a lot of it goes down to doing the small things you don't want to do that become bigger, greater things before you even recognize that they are. Like, I've talked about this on many podcasts. Like, athletes will say, 15 minutes? Why am I doing 15 minutes today? That's basically pointless. And from a time management getting started, aspect, like, if you can't find the time to do 15 minutes, then don't tell me you're going to find time to do 30. Like, we think that way as humans. Like, oh, I need more to get motivated. I need more to actually find time to carve out. Well, most people spend probably 78 hours on social media a week, and you can't tell me you can't find time to do 30 minutes today. Like, if you can't find time to do 15, then you can't find time to do 45. And if you make that argument, then your priorities and your time management is way out of whack anyway. But the point being is that if you can make time for 20, then you can make time for 25. And you can make time for 25, you can make time for 30. So it's not just about, because that's the biggest, I don't want to say that's the biggest challenge as a coach or the biggest obstacle you have to overcome. But I think that from my perspective as a coach, the biggest training stimulus that you can apply to an athlete is convincing them of the importance and allowing them to be consistent with their training during a week, and just really concreting the importance of that through slow implementation of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you might run 15 minutes. Well, the next week it might be 20. The next week it might be 25. They might go down. And then 4 or 5 months later, they're doing 40 minutes, 40 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 65 minutes, 100 hour and a half. And they think, wow, 6 months ago, I was running like only 4 or 5 times a week and barely getting over an hour total. Now I'm running 4 hours a week and I feel incredible. You can't expect, like, and the athletes like to do this. They want to get in good shape. And I've joked about this all the time with athletes that maybe I start working with, and I look back through their Training Peaks, and they've uploaded like 19 different training plans from Training Peaks. And it's like, oh, well, I uploaded the 14-hour, training plan, for 70.3, and I missed the first 2 weeks. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to upload the 20-hour-a-week plan because that's what's going to get me going, and that's what's going to get me focused in the end of just failing and faltering. But that's the biggest thing is like if you can get your athletes to be consistent, then you are 90% of the way there. And this is no like secret. I'm not like, uncovering some huge physiological coaching myth here, but if you can just convince your athletes to be consistent and work out almost every day and be a part of that process, then over weeks and months and years, they're going to get incrementally better. But you have to, and I guess like when I talk about making you can't make athletes consistent. You can provide them a path and a training load that is very, very, very easy to look at as I can do this. Like I can really do this week. And then without actually asking them to do, it's like, teaching kids certain things. Like you kind of hide making things more difficult, and you want to give them, you give them a couple inches here, then you're like a little more inch, couple more inches here, couple more inches here, couple more inches here. You just slowly, drag them along until the next thing you know, they're like, I have no idea how I got up to, you started at 3 or 4 hours a week of training. Next thing you know, you're up to 10 or 12. You have to slowly dose it in to where their body catches up to where that's just part of their life. It's become a fabric of who they are and what they do, and they feel like they're better off with it in their lives than they can make excuses for why it shouldn't be. And I think that's probably going back to what I was saying about walking every day for 3 years and doing that meditation and doing those things. It became more about something that became part of who I was and what I did, and I never thought twice about it. It was just something that I wanted to do, and like you said, it was building energy and faith that I was like, no matter what, I feel like this is a good thing. Whether I know it's going to be or not, I feel like this is a good thing. So I'm going to ride this train as long as I can and see what happens.
I feel like this is a good thing. It feels right. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
it feels right.
Feeling right.
Which is all I had. It was like, this feels right.
Last night I went to dinner with an athlete, and we were talking about weight loss and how or just getting healthy in general maybe sometimes, and how we go from the chasm of unhealthy and overweight to wanting to be in great shape and feeling good, and the whole continuum of how do you get there? And I was just saying, man, I feel like there's a real need for bridge gappers in this world, and how you're talking about how you inch up somebody, and the next thing you know, they're running 4 hours a week or whatever. But I don't know if we have that sort of plan all the time for diet. And I'm sure a lot of coaches don't do it in this regard. I mean, because you said it felt good. It felt like it felt good. It felt right. I can tell you right now, like, maybe I can't. When I started running, it hurt all the time. It did not feel right a lot, but I think overall, I was on the right overarching move. But at certain points, I was just like, this does not feel like the good idea. So yeah, that's actually when I started triathlon, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm just very curious about it just feels right. And because that's like at your core, that's at your center place. That's not like some lip service crap.
It's about intent. And I think like going back to you said, like even recently with running and your challenges, like getting healthy and being out and running is like, while running hasn't felt good, obviously, or you would be doing it every day, your intent has been to find a way to get better, to do something that is good, which the last few weeks it's been swimming like 5 or 6 days a week. So I think that's one of the things we have a hard time distinguishing between is our intent and result, because we expect our result to always show us and mirror what we originally wanted our intent to be. Your original intent was to get out the door and start running, and then obviously you've had some setbacks. So the result hasn't been exactly what you've wanted it to be, yet your intent got shifted to, well, if I can't run, then I will swim. And that's been a positive thing.
You're right. It's just not always there with swimming. You know what I mean?
It's like, because I think everyone will say that's never always there with swimming, but
well, it's just, and let's face it, it's with everything going on, and I mean, part of me is kind of like, okay, no races, I'm hurt, what do I care? But yeah. The other part of me knows, I almost know deep in my heart that if there was a race, like if this whole season didn't fall apart, I'm almost certain I would have pushed myself through this injury. And not necessarily in a bad way. I just feel like I'm hedging a little bit. I'm kind of like, I'm not doing like everything I need to be doing. But if I would have had a race scheduled, I would have probably been a lot more diligent about, immobilizing, doing things that need to be done, taking time off, whatever it may be. I think, races motivate me in that regard too. It's like, well, Phil, last year, buddy, we had a lot of people who've kind of get late in the season and then all of a sudden they've got plantar fasciitis or some kind of niggle or whatever, and they figure out a way. And that's and he's rebounded well, it sounds like, after maybe a little hiccup, but he's back and going strong. And I think a lot of times that's it too. It's almost like if we would have said podcast, every once in a while, but we put the date on the calendar twice a day or twice a week, and it's just, how it goes.
We probably only have like 200 if we had been like,
I bet that's right.
Every once in a while. Seriously,
if we were even still doing it.
That's probably true. No, you bring up a good point. There was something you said right there. I think it's a really good thing to investigate within ourselves. As you said, I just feel like I would find a way. And I think with everything in life, we have these things that we're interested in, or these, whether it's professional, personal, whatever. You have these moments where you think, all right, am I going to really find a way to do it, or am I just going to not work that hard and convince myself I don't need to do it? Because there are things like with this, like you said, with this podcast, we committed to doing it twice a week, and we've been doing it every week, twice a week since, through holidays and travel and whatever. And there's nothing has gotten in the way. But is it really nothing has gotten in the way? Or is it, because like some of our podcasts have been like, you and I have been in the same car driving through Louisiana that you've been in, you've been at your mom's. I've been like standing in a stairwell at Disney with headphones in and on a phone. Like a lot's gotten in the way. And we could have easily said, nah, it's not going to work out this time. I remember, I think it was earlier this year over one of the holidays. And I was texting you, and I said, you know what? Let's just not do it today. I think it was like Christmas Eve or day before Thanksgiving. So I was like, let's just not do it today. Yeah. I think people understand. And you were like,
I know.
Let's just do it. And I was like, you know
it's
what?
Totally
You're right.
not,
I know it's
me.
You totally surprised me. I was like totally expecting you to be like, oh yeah, dude, you're right. Let's just put it off. But there's always going to be things in the way. There's always going to be things in life that get in the way, whether it's, your boss or your friends or your kids or, or schoolwork or, weather or whatever it is. There's always going to be things in quote unquote in the way. But I think where you see the athletes make the biggest leaps in their performance and their success, and if you want to, use an apples to apples comparison with athlete A and athlete B side by side, is that for one athlete, it's always going to be about, well, life just got in the way, or life just got in the way, and life just got in the way. And these things happen where you're just kind of letting life dictate your response. You're more on the defensive. And then the other athletes, they basically look at life as, life is going to happen, but I'm on the offensive today. I know what I want to get out of life. I know what I want to do today, and I'm going to get it done. It's just kind of like life is going to ricochet off me. I'm going to get my shit done. I don't really care what happens. They're not being neglectful. They're not putting other things to the side or putting just triathlon first. They literally wake up and think, I'm doing this today. And that's their sense of accomplishment, because they want to take charge and be in control versus, well, things just kind of got in the way. And it's like, really? Or did you just not have the bull by the horns and just life basically just take you for a rodeo ride, and you were basically just thrown off the back when you could have been the one in the lead? And I think that's a mindset people have to have. And I think that mindset comes and goes, and you have to have the energy to fight it, because sometimes life just does seem like incredibly overwhelming. But the best training periods I've ever had in my entire life, I knew when I woke up that day that life is going to happen, but no matter what, I really know that I can find the time to do a 30-minute run or a 40-minute run or get in a ride. I really know that I can. If I don't, it's not that life got in the way. It's that I was more comfortable easing my way into an excuse, because the way the world is now, we can make an excuse every single day that something's like you said with you're kind of hedging your plantar fasciitis and like, just, I'm going to be a little careful here and be a little careful. And obviously you don't ever want to press an injury. I'm not advocating for pushing through significant amounts of pain. Like that's the farthest thing I am from a coach, but at some point you do need to experiment with what is just general discomfort on my way to the path of recovery. Or is this just me convincing myself to just keep taking, and I think every athlete has this, especially when they come back from injury, they have like, during taper, best example ever. Everyone gets these like phantom pains. They were like, oh, I haven't had this like pain in my leg and all year, and all of a sudden I'm barely working out, and all of a sudden I can't. It's just there. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I don't know if I'm healthy. I'm like, dude, it's a phantom pain. Your mind is there. It's not causing it to be more painful, but you're just more aware of it. And so I think for every athlete, when it comes to, staying focused and staying motivated, you have to understand, like, did life really get in the way? Or did you just get in your own way? And what I mean by that is, did you just not place enough, not importance, because again, triathlon isn't the most important thing in your life, or I don't think it should be. I think it should be a good complement to it. But if you want to be successful and you want to be consistent and you want to participate in these events that you signed up for, then at some point you're going to have to make somewhat of a sacrifice to do those things. And a lot of times that means getting up 20 minutes early. Like, don't tell me that you can't get up and get a 25-minute run before you go to work. It's, how easy it is to wake up in the 30 minutes and just walk out the door and just get it done. You can find a way if you want to find a way. It's rarely, yes, does life get in the way sometimes? Sure. But for the most part, you just kind of open the door and let it in. It's not that it just kind of beat the door down.
Yeah, and that's a great example, actually, that find a way to get it done in the morning. Because, like, one of the things with plantar fasciitis, and a guy was talking to me about it, and he's advanced knowledge of plantar, but he was like, dude, do those ankle warm-up exercise, the alphabet thing, and all that kind of stuff, and make sure that before you get out of bed, it's like a 5-minute commitment.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, but in the big scope, I think 5 minutes ain't that much. Yeah. But I'm like, most of the time I'm just like, I'm getting out of bed and I'll whatever. And it's just like, I know that's inflaming things probably, or those little things that I'm not doing along the way, because it's getting better, but it's not, healed completely. But I do feel like I'm really getting close. But to your point, I think there's also, for me, there's, I don't want to say depression, but the level of enjoyment, excitement that you get. And sometimes I'm just like, and this is all of us, right? Depending on like how we slept or how we ate or whatever. I just feel like sometimes, more often than not, I kind of put myself in a lower vibration channel or whatever. But like, that's why I look for those things like races. And it's like, if I know that thing's out there and you're going to throw me in the damn lake and I'm going to have to swim, I'm going to do it. But if it's not out there, I'm not going to go volunteer myself very often. So that's a really good example, I think, of why, those energy levels and those vibrations and things like that are, what drive it. And I think that, to me, is, let me ask you a question about, I'm so fascinated about the walk and the meditation and everything like that. For lack of a better word, do you think you got stronger over time with it, or was it? I mean, that seems like a dumb question, but like, did you notice it? Like, towards the end, maybe you said you did it for a few years, for example.
3
years. 3 years.
A little over that.
Did somebody come up and give you the business or try to mug you, and you're just like, I'm so strong, you're not gonna faze me? No. Okay, so it's at some point in some podcast, you and I will go into this. All right. At some point, we'll dive in deep. But I was having this conversation with the person today. We were talking about or that they asked me, like, if you could go back and redo one day of your life, it would be the exact same day. Like, you couldn't change it. You just had to go back and relive it. Go back and experience it. You couldn't change anything. You couldn't touch it. You just kind of go back, and relive that part of it. And I chose one of the more
I think most people would consider like one of the more difficult days of my entire life. But it was because the day itself proved to me that the 2 to 3 to 4 years preceding it, I had done right. I had become, like you said, did you give you strength? And to me, so when I started doing that, I did it when I first got sober. Before I got sober, I basically like never did anything like with an extreme level of commitment. I would always half-ass everything. I would always quit when I was halfway done. I would either self-sabotage things. I would never do things. I would definitely never do them alone, because who's going to see it? Like who really cares? You know, like I can always cut short, like big deal. Like who's going to judge me for not doing this? Like I'm just going to, you know, ride by and skate by the, you know, seat of my pants and just do whatever. And it was the first time, going back to like the walk and meditation thing. It was like, it was a culmination of me proving that, because it was a period, even though you know, Allie, and even you, like you spent this enormous amount of time in my life, like outside of you and a couple other people, like I went through this very difficult period of my life, basically alone. And it was the first time in my life that I proved to myself that no matter what, if I really, really, really wanted to, I could do anything I wanted to do by myself. Not just as in like, I don't need help, but as in like, if you really wanted to do something and you really want to be committed to something, then you can really overcome and be as strong as you really want to be. And that walk and that meditation was a small, small piece of momentum for me. That was, it may seem like 5 or 10 minutes, which is what it was. It was a 5 or 10 minute walk. And some days I'd be even like incredibly more anxious than other days. And I would repeat it like over and over and over again until it just left, like my body, until my anxiety just left. But it was a small piece of my day that I started gaining momentum from. It was like, well, if I can do this every day, and I can, you know, and I was still being sober every day, and then a year turned into 2 years and 3 years, and I was overcoming little bouts of, you know, difficulties in my life or anxious days, and I was overcoming those and thinking, like I'm getting strong, like I'm getting stronger, like I can do this, and some of it's also luck and how, you know, that's how life plays out. But I just I feel like I was getting stronger at just being, I don't want to say independent, because that's not the word I'm trying to find here. But I felt like I was becoming more resilient, not as in like you said, like some guys are trying to mug me and I'm like, dude, like I'm in a meditative state. You can't touch me. It's not that. It was more resilient as in I wasn't letting because you know in my life, right, was like back then, like I had so many things that I could have used as an excuse to just be like, you know what? I don't give a shit anymore. I'm just gonna throw the towel in. But establishing those patterns, I was just creating little bits and pieces of momentum that I think eventually just carried me all the way to where I am today. And you might not think a 5-minute walk can start that, or going to a 1-hour meeting can start that. But those little bits and pieces of commitment and motivation that propel you into momentum are huge. And those can be the same thing as a 25-minute run or your 5 minutes of ankle flexibility. Like, because at some point you bridge the gap from, well, I don't really want to do it, to I kind of feel weird if I don't.
Yeah, that's a commitment piece, man.
And that's like, and no, I don't think anyone knows where it starts and when it ends. You know, from I'm working every day, I miss a few days. I don't really care if I miss a few days. I'm not that committed. And then you get to, I'm working out a ton. I'm super consistent. I'm motivated. I'm in the process. Now I kind of feel bad if I missed it. Like, where do you bridge?
I know, and then they feel terrible if
right.
they miss.
Then they feel terrible.
So,
and then you're like, I gotta get
which
back.
is unreasonable the other way.
Exactly.
Often.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, this idea, the power of practice or habit.
The power of practice. I mean, I really think that that is a huge piece of it. As simple as it is the power of practice and the power of putting yourself in situations every day, not like hard situations, but everything we do every day is proof that we can, proof that we can't, proof that it's easy, proof that it's hard, proof that we're still working at it, proof that we have farther to go, proof that we're still struggling, proof that we're overcoming. Like, everything we do, something one day is either proving one thing and the other, whether it's in reality, whether it's to ourselves. So you're either concreting one habit or the other. Like, you're rarely ever in life, same as in training, you're rarely ever just staying the same. Rarely ever. You're either getting better or you're getting worse, right? And so I think that's something that, like, with behaviors and habits and things that we tend to work on, is that, like, once you get to that point to where you're so in love and you're so committed to just kind of getting better and feeling that momentum each day, you don't want it to stop, because it does. It becomes like a part of who you are. So even when it's taken from you, like I had an athlete that was like, I was hate to see my green streak taken away, but I had to do this with family today. And like, I knew it was the right thing to do, but you could tell it wasn't like an unhealthy, I hated to see it go. It was like, I feel like something's missing from my day because it was taken from me. Not like, again, not in a negative, unhealthy way, but in like my day has become so complete when I do these things that I feel like I missed it. And which I think people do. Like, people love running and love riding and swimming. Like, it brings joy and energy to their lives. And I think that's the healthy balance of it, is that, if it provides something good to your life in a positive way, and it provides a positive feedback, whether it's your own alone time or working through life's problems or dealing with your anxiety and depression or getting outside and feeling the sun on your skin or being around a community on a group run. Like, when you miss those things, it really is like a part of you has been taken from you and you want it back so bad, versus the other way, which is you really don't know what you're missing because you haven't done it for long enough to realize that it's really part of you.
Yeah. You know what I miss really a lot? The lab.
I missed the lab.
I used to ride. It was like that. It really was a lab. And to your point about doing things alone and when nobody's looking, that was kind of my motto in a lot of ways. I mean, it's sort of how I drove my training, actually. It was like, nobody's watching. They're never going to see.
Oh, dude, I can tell you
You're
guys from
a
experience.
Crazy son of a...
If Mike gets quiet in his training, then he's in the zone, because it's true. Because like the last 6 to 8 weeks before some of your best events, I would rarely ever hear from you unless you're in the podcast, and they'd be like, "Hey, how are things going?" You'd be like, "Things are going pretty good." And I'd pop into Training Peaks and be like, "Things are going pretty good." But you get very, very, very quiet when things are going really, really, really well.
Yeah, it's true. I like that though, man. It's this thing where I forgot maybe it was a David Goggins thing or something, but he goes, next time, he goes, like, cause he always talks about doing things in the hard parts of the days, or when it's storming, or when it's just crazy weather or whatever, it's just terrible. And then he was saying, I think it was in the book actually, it's like, you ask yourself, who on earth is crazy enough to do, like, who's a crazy enough mother F and to do something like this? And like, you do that, cause you're 4 hours into a bike ride out in the lab or whatever, and it's 100 degrees, and you're just like, who's crazy enough to do this? And then that puts you in that mindset where I'm going to race. I am. It's me. Nobody's crazier than me. And those are self-talks that I totally buy into on race day, and just other motivational shortcuts or whatever. But they're legit though. It's not like some hack to me. It does feel like, at least for me, feels crazy, I don't think I'm sure there's a lot of crazy people who have done what I was doing that day.
I'm sure there probably are too.
Yeah. And it wasn't that bad, but you know what I mean? Yeah, I think we all have those moments where, man, this feels like out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. And then when you get done, you're like, I feel like even more resilient. Like the day that I went out there to do my century in the lab.
Yeah, when you did 100 miles out at an oval.
And my Garmin died at 98.4, so I did 2 more for a good show.
I don't think I've ever doubted you though. I think
I doubted me big time.
You weren't sure?
No, because we've both been in the lab, and there have been plenty of times where the lab has crushed my soul. Where I went out there thinking, like, and we've talked about this before, if it's your first time listening, be like, these guys suck. I don't know what we're talking about right now. But the lab is this like 1.2 mile old airport loop where there's no shade. It's straight asphalt. It's the hottest place you can possibly imagine in the summertime, and incredibly windy. And there have been times where I've gone out there and felt like $1 million physically. And within the first 20 miles, I'm like, I'm because that's also the bad thing about, I'm like, I'm done. Like, that's the worst. That's also the worst. That was the worst thing for me about it, was you live close by, which is also a bad thing, but I could always see my car through the entire ride. You can basically
spin off.
You could just spin off and like, yeah, my day's done. I could see my car the entire time. Relief was not even a half mile away. I could just peel on over and be at it, you know? So the days that it ate me up and spit me out, I was like, my car's right there. I'm just going to kind of, you know, just call it a day. But when I went out and did that day, physically, I felt okay, but mentally and emotionally, I was like, I got this today. Like there wasn't anything that was going to get in my way. Physically, it was like, was I going to have the mental fortitude to basically look at nothing for, 5 hours, but the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Love that.
90 times or 88 sometimes. But like that over and over and over again. That is it for podcast 401. That is over. Right. You tossing in the towel?
Tossing the towel.
That's
it.
Taking
that hot.
It's hot. Yeah. It's hey, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. This has been podcast 401. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach out to Mike via email, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, C26coach@gmail.com. And if you want to swing by our website to view all things camps, community, and coaching, you can go there at C26triathlon.com.
Yeah. And check out the hub because, got a bunch of new stuff going in there lately, and there's only going to keep to be more, whatever that means.
I like it.
What else was there? The Ask the Coach. Once again, look me in the eye. There's going to be, if you go to crushingiron.com, which is our sister website, or it used to be the original blog, there's a Ask the Coach button up on top. Just click that, and then you leave a voicemail. I mean, we've been talking for almost an hour. It's easy to just say a few things and ask a question for him, and
or Mike.
We'll play it in this podcast like this. It will just hit.
Hello, I'm Sebastian Kienle. I'm coming.
I want to play. Who's this?
Hello, I'm Sebastian Kienle. I'm coming to you saying the Crushing Iron podcast is one of the best, and I listen to it all the time here in Germany, and with my friends Jan Frodeno and CC Winovich.
That is the worst impersonation I've ever heard of a German and B Sebastian Kienle.
Sam's from England, and he said it was a pretty good German imitation.
I mean, considering he was in English, yeah, sure.
Anyway, that's it. Wrapping it up.
That's it. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks.